The galaxy was loud with colors that human eyes could barely see. Fleets from every corner of the stars gathered at the grand space of the Galactic Council. It was not only a meeting, it was a contest of pride. Every year, civilizations displayed their finest ships, their fastest engines, their most advanced creations. The arena of the void glittered with polished hulls, bright banners, and the silent arrogance of 100 species. The Thal had arrived first, long silver ships shaped like blades, sharp and cruel in design. They shimmered with energy shields that wrapped them like crowns. The Thal ships were built for speed, each one capable of crossing systems in the blink of an eye. To them, this gathering was not about friendship, but about dominance. Their engines sang like hunters eager for prey. Next were the Hern. Their vessels were alive, grown rather than built, with skin that pulsed like the surface of water. They swam through space as though it was an ocean, bending light around them, in a way that made them almost vanish. Their ships were fast, graceful, almost beautiful to watch. Where the Thal showed cruelty, the Hern showed elegance. Both had come to remind the galaxy who held the crown of progress. And then the Koru entered. Their city ship blocked out half the view of a star as it arrived, a mountain floating in the void. It was slow to appear, but its very presence shook the council's hall. The Koru did not race, they did not need to. They bent gravity itself. When they wanted to move, they folded the paths of the cosmos, stepping from one horizon to the next as if the universe itself bowed to them. Their arrival alone was enough to make lesser races lower their gaze. Every species held their breath, waiting for more. And then came the humans. The human vessel was small, too small. Where the Koru's ship was a continent, the humans was barely a village. It entered the arena late, its thrusters groaning, its metal scarred from past journeys. The hull carried no flowing lines, no delicate armor. Instead, it was heavy, industrial, rough, like something dragged from a factory floor rather than crafted by engineers of genius. Laughter rippled through the alien fleets. "Is that a warship or a mining barge?" One Thal voice sneered across, "Open channels. Look at it. Clumsy, thick, crawling. Does it even move?" mocked another. The Hern whispered in their liquid tones, "How do they not die of shame flying such a stone?" Even the mighty Koru, who usually spared their words, muttered, "Primitive." The soundless void was alive with amusement. Their scorn washed across every channel, translated into every tongue. Inside the human ship, UHS Endeavor, the crew listened in silence. The mocking words reached them, stabbing deeper than any weapon, but no one answered. Not the captain, not the engineers, not the youngest cadet sitting at the far console. They had known this moment would come. They had prepared for it. The captain, an older man with lines of weariness etched into his face, stared at the display of alien ships. His crew looked at him, waiting for orders, waiting for permission to respond. But he simply folded his hands behind his back and said quietly, "Let them laugh. That is all they know how to do." For a long while, the humans said nothing. Their ship floated, heavy and slow among sleek hunters, as if it had no place there, at all. And perhaps in the eyes of the galaxy it truly did not. But deep within the Endeavor, past the steel walls and humming consoles, there was something different. A machine, unlike any other. An engine built not to race the stars, but to rewrite them. The humans carried a secret. The galaxy did not yet understand, but it soon would. The day of the trials arrived. The fleets lined up across the dark stretch of space, their ships glowing like jewels against the endless black. The Galactic Council watched from a massive station at the center, its halls filled with dignitaries, rulers, and commanders from hundreds of worlds. Every year, the speed trials were a moment of pride. Each species showed how far they had come, how strong they had become. The humans knew what awaited them. Every eye was on their ship, the ugly, bulky Endeavor. It floated awkwardly among sleek, predators in living vessels like a whale that had wandered into a sea of sharks. The crew felt the weight of those stares, the silent judgment pressing against them. The Thal were first. Their ships were thin and sharp, and when the signal came, they leapt forward like arrows of light. They moved so fast that even sensors struggled to capture them. They cut across the void with precision, then reappeared at the finish beacon in less than a breath. Cheers erupted from the council chamber. Applause echoed across the comm channels. The Thal were proud, arrogant, smiling with razor-sharp teeth. Then the Hearn glided into position. Their vessel shimmered like liquid glass. When the signal came, it did not leap. It flowed. The ship curved through space, slipping between dimensions, bending light around itself. It vanished, then reappeared at the beacon, its surface rippling, like calm water after a storm. The crowd gasped at the beauty of it. The Hearn bowed with quiet pride. And then came the Koru. Their city ship dwarfed the field, a giant among insects. At first it did nothing. The signal rang and the massive vessel simply remained where it was. Some thought it had failed, but then, in a thunderous shift, the stars themselves bent. Gravity trembled. The city ship stepped forward, not across distance but through it, as if the galaxy itself had opened a door for them. In an instant the Koru ship stood at the beacon. Silence filled the chamber, broken only by reverent whispers. "Unmatched," said one alien elder. "They are the masters of space," agreed another. Finally it was the humans' turn. The Endeavor drifted forward. Its thrusters rumbled heavy and slow. The hull groaned with the effort of moving. From the station above, laughter broke out before the trial even began. When the signal rang, the Endeavor pushed forward. It moved, like a crawling beast, slow, deliberate. Where the Thal were lightning, where the Hearn were flowing rivers, where the Koru were bending gods, the human ship was ordinary. Its engines strained, but the movement was clumsy, painfully slow. It crept forward, inch by inch, until even the crowd lost patience. The laughter grew louder. "Do they call that speed?" One Thal commander sneered. "I have seen." "Asteroids drift faster," said another. A Hearn diplomat chuckled, their liquid voice bubbling like mockery. "Perhaps humans do not know what a race is. They think it is crawling." Even the usually silent Koru allowed a low murmur. "A primitive tool. Unworthy." The channels filled with jokes, each crueler than the last. Some aliens imitated crawling creatures, others laughed openly into their microphones. The humans could hear it all. Inside the Endeavor, silence pressed heavier than the jeers. The young cadet at the console clenched his fists so tightly his knuckles whitened. He wanted to shout back, to curse the aliens, to defend his people, but his training kept him silent. Across the bridge, the engineers exchanged glances, their faces tight with frustration and shame. The captain, however, stood calm. His eyes remained fixed on the endless black, watching the slow crawl of his ship. He heard the laughter, but his face showed nothing. Only his voice carried across the bridge, low and steady. "Let them speak," he said. "Their words are lighter than dust. They do not know." The cadet turned, trembling with emotion. "Sir, they're humiliating us." The captain's gaze softened. For a moment he looked less like a commander and more like a father. "Cadet, remember this. True strength is not proven in applause. It is proven when all else has failed." The words lingered in the air, quiet and heavy. The crew straightened in their seats. They still felt the sting of mockery, but in their hearts a small fire burned brighter. They held their silence, enduring the storm of laughter that surrounded them. The Endeavor crawled on, steady, slow, unremarkable. But deep within its core, unseen by any alien eye, the strange hum of its secret engine grew louder. The galaxy believed they had witnessed the humans' weakness, but the truth had only begun to stir. The laughter from the trials did not fade quickly. Even as the fleets returned to their stations and the dignitaries prepared for the next showcase, the humans remained the subject of whispers. Everywhere, across every channel, the word "slow" followed them like a shadow. Yet inside the UHS, Endeavor. The crew did not speak of shame. They spoke only in low voices about the hum. It was faint, almost like a vibration under the skin. The engineers felt it through the deck plates, a rhythm that did not match the ordinary pulse of the thrusters. To the untrained ear, it was nothing, just the groaning of an old vessel straining in front of the galaxy's eyes. But the crew knew better. That sound was the heartbeat of the fold engine. The humans had spent generations chasing the stars, always behind the great civilizations. Their ships were smaller, their colonies younger, their weapons simpler. The galaxy saw them as newcomers, fragile and backward. But while the other empires perfected speed, humans studied something else. They looked at space not as a highway, but as a fabric, a curtain, something that could be touched, pulled, even broken. Where the Thal sought sharper arrows, where the Hearn sought smoother streams, where the Koru bent gravity with brute force, the humans searched for something far stranger. The Fold project had begun in secret labs under Earth's oceans, away from the eyes of rival powers. It was dangerous, unpredictable. Entire stations had been lost during testing. Men and women had vanished in flashes of light, their atoms scattered across time. But humanity endured the failures. They carried their grief like armor, and with each tragedy, they learned. And now, hidden in the belly of the Endeavor, their first working fold engine waited. The crew knew it was not ready for use in a simple race. It was not built to impress with speed or elegance. It was built for war, for survival, for the day when humanity would have no choice but to gamble everything on one terrible leap. The captain walked the narrow bridge of the Endeavor, his hands clasped behind his back. He paused at each station, looking at the faces of his people. They were tense but steady. He could see the knowledge in their eyes. They too had heard the warning hum, the low growl that whispered, "Not yet, but soon." In the engineering bay, Chief Harlow leaned over the core. His palms were sweaty, though he would never admit it. He had overseen the Fold engine's construction. He had seen its power firsthand, and even now it unsettled him. It wasn't natural. No machine had the right to touch the skin of the universe the way this one did. When it powered up, the air around it bent like heat haze. Tools would shift without being touched. Sometimes voices echoed in places where no one was speaking. Harlow had once seen his own hand blur, like he was both standing there and standing somewhere else. And yet, this was humanity's hope. As Harlow adjusted the core's stabilizers, he whispered under his breath, "Hold together. Just a little longer." Above, on the bridge, the captain received reports. The trials were ending. The fleets were returning to their stations, smug and laughing, certain they had seen all there was to see. But in the silence of the Endeavor, there was no laughter. Only that rising hum, like a storm crawling closer. The young cadet shifted in, his seat uneasy. He finally asked, "Captain, when will we show them? When will they see what we carry?" The captain stood still for a long time. His gaze drifted to the stars outside, a sea of light that mocked their slowness. At last he answered in a voice heavy with patience, "Not today. The galaxy thinks us slow. Let them believe it. But the universe has a way of forcing truth into the light. And when that day comes..." He placed a hand gently on the cadet's shoulder. "They will not laugh." The crew fell silent again. The hum continued, louder now, resonating through every wall and console. It was no longer just a sound, it was a warning, a promise of what slept inside the human vessel. The galaxy thought they had seen weakness, but the humans knew the truth. The Endeavor was not slow. The trials had ended. The fleets returned to their places, their banners shining with pride. The Thal boasted loudly of their unmatched speed. The Hearn whispered songs of their graceful victory. The Koru remained silent, but their presence alone reminded all that they were still the rulers of the void. The humans, as always, were forgotten. Their ship drifted quietly, slow and unimpressive. The laughter that had mocked them earlier still lingered like smoke, but now the galaxy's attention turned elsewhere. The council began to speak of trade, alliances, and the next games, and then the stars changed. At first, it was only a ripple. Sensors flickered. A vibration passed through, the void too deep to be natural. Then the ripple became a wound. The fabric of space tore open, and from that wound poured ships no one had ever seen before. They were sharp, jagged things like shards of broken glass. Their hulls shimmered with unstable energy, and their weapons glowed with hunger. They did not come for show. They did not come for honor, they came to kill. The first blast struck a Thal ship. The arrow-shaped vessel, so fast, so proud, cracked in half before it could move. Light flared as pieces scattered into the void. The laughter died instantly. Panic replaced pride. The Hern tried to flee, their liquid ships twisting and vanishing into the folds of light. But the raiders' weapons pierced even the safest currents. One by one, the graceful vessels were sliced apart, falling like shattered glass into the dark. The Koru stood their ground, their city ship bent gravity, unleashing waves that tore through attackers. For a moment, it seemed they might hold. But the raiders were relentless. They swarmed like wolves, carving at the giant until its surface broke. Fire spread across the mountain of metal, and then the unthinkable happened. The Koru Leviathan collapsed in on itself, its gravity folding into a black wound. The mightiest ship in the galaxy was gone. The council chambers erupted in screams. Rulers shouted over each other, ordering retreats, calling for aid, cursing their enemies. Fleets scattered in chaos, once proud vessels now nothing more than frightened prey. Through it all, the UHS Endeavor remained. The raiders turned their broken glass ships toward the human vessel. Their voices hissed across the comms, cruel and mocking. The slow one waits. The slow one will be easy prey. Crush them. Let their screams be the last music of this place. Inside the Endeavor, fear rippled across the crew. The young cadet's heart pounded. He could see the fire outside, the wreckage of fleets that had mocked them only moments ago. He could see the death of ships that had ruled the stars for centuries. His throat tightened, his breath shallow. "Captain," he whispered, "we can't face them. We're nothing compared to—" But the captain raised a hand. His face was calm, almost still. "Cadet," he said softly, "we are not nothing. We are what they do not understand." The bridge fell silent. The hum of the fold engine filled the air, steady and deep, like the growl of some ancient beast waiting to wake. In the engineering bay, Chief Harlow stared at his instruments. The engine was ready. Too soon, perhaps. Too dangerous. He felt sweat bead on his forehead as alarms glowed red, warning of unstable power. He knew what the captain would say before he even heard the order. On the comms, the raiders' voices grew sharper. They taunted the humans, laughing, promising to tear their ship apart piece by piece. Their weapons locked on, beams of energy, gathering for the strike. The cadet gripped his console, knuckles white, his voice cracked with fear. "Sir, what do we do?" The captain did not flinch. He looked out into the void, at the swarm of enemies closing in, at the broken fleets, drifting helplessly. His voice was steady, a calm river cutting through chaos. "Prepare the bend." The crew froze. They had trained for this moment, but none of them truly believed it would come here, now, in front of the galaxy. The cadet swallowed hard. "Sir, if it fails," the captain said, "then we die as humans always have, trying. But if it works—" His eyes narrowed, steady, and unshaken. "The universe will never laugh at us again." The bridge filled with silence, broken only by the rising roar of the fold engine. The lights flickered. The hull groaned. Space itself began to tremble around the Endeavor. And for the first time since the trials began, the galaxy stopped laughing. The void was burning. Ships that once glowed with pride now floated as broken husks. The proud banners of the great races were torn, their wrecks scattered like ash across the black. The Thal's blades lay shattered. The Hearn's living ships bled pieces of themselves into the dark. Even the mighty Koru were gone, their Leviathan swallowed by its own wounded gravity. Only one vessel remained in the center of the storm, the slow, heavy UHS Endeavor. The raiders circled it like predators. Their jagged ships twisted and darted, weapons flashing in cruel light. They opened their comm channels, voices like knives, sharp and mocking. Look at it, still crawling. The weak ones do not flee. Perhaps they know it is useless. Destroy them slowly. Let them watch each other die. Their laughter echoed through the speakers, cruel and endless. Inside the Endeavor, the crew sat in silence. Fear trembled in their hearts, but no one spoke. The young cadet's hands shook where they clutched his console. His chest rose and fell, quickly, each breath tight, sharp. He wanted to scream back at the raiders, to curse them, to shout for the whole galaxy to hear. But his voice refused to rise. The captain stood at the center of the bridge, his posture straight, his eyes steady. His face held no trace of panic, only calm, only patience. He turned his head slowly, looking at each of his crew in turn, as if to remind them they were not alone. "Prepare the bend," he said again. His words carried softly, but every soul on the ship heard them as clearly as thunder. In the engineering bay, Chief Harlow swallowed hard. His hands hovered above the controls of the fold engine. The air around the machine shimmered, heatless and strange, as if reality itself bent under its pulse. Tools rattled on the workbenches. Metal groaned with vibrations that did not belong to this world. He whispered under his breath, "Hold together, please hold together." Back on the bridge, the cadet finally broke the silence. His voice cracked with fear. "Captain, they'll tear us apart before we even start. Why don't we run?" The captain turned his gaze toward the boy. His eyes softened, though his face stayed firm. "Run where, cadet? The fleets are gone. The council flees. The galaxy trembles. If we run, we die as shadows. If we stand, we may die as fire." Words sank deep into the boy's chest. He bit his lip, nodding shakily, though his fear remained. The raiders drew closer, their weapons locked on. Bright lights gathered at the tips of their cannons, ready to strike. Still, the Endeavor did not move. The galaxy watched. Across the comms, the scattered survivors, leaders, soldiers, citizens saw the human ship floating alone in the storm. They waited for it to break, for the raiders to crush it like glass. Instead, they heard silence, silence heavier than the void itself. The fold engine roared to life. The hum that had whispered for days now rose like a beast awakening. The walls of the ship shook. Lights flickered, shadows bent in impossible directions. Some crew felt their vision blur as though their eyes saw two places at once. Time itself seemed to hesitate, caught in the breath before a storm. The cadet's heartbeat thundered in his ears. He gripped the edge of his seat, staring at the captain. "Sir, if this doesn't work..." The captain did not look at him. His eyes stayed fixed on the dark horizon, on the raiders closing in. His voice was steady, calm, unshaken. "If it does not work," he said, "then we fall with dignity. But if it works..." He let the words hang in the silence. "Then every soul in this galaxy will know the truth of what humans are." The raiders screamed across comms, weapons firing, streaks of death racing toward the Endeavor. The captain lifted his hand. "Execute." And in that final moment before the universe broke, the bridge was utterly still. No words, no cries, only silence, the silence before the storm. The raiders' weapons screamed through the void. Beams of red and violet fire cut across the black, tearing toward the human vessel. To every watching eye, it was the end. The Endeavor was too slow, too fragile, too small. But then the hum became a roar. The fold engine awoke. The air inside the ship trembled. Consoles flickered wildly, lights flashing in rhythms no human hand had programmed. The walls groaned, as if the metal itself remembered something older than stars. Crew members gripped their seats as gravity twisted beneath them, first heavy, as stone, then light as air. The cadet gasped. For a heartbeat, he saw the stars bend. Their sharp points curved into strange arcs like paint smeared across black canvas. His stomach lurched as though the universe itself had taken a breath. And then, it broke. Space did not stretch, did not warp like the drives of the Thal or the Hearn. It snapped. The void folded in half like paper bent by invisible hands. One horizon collided with another. Stars touched stars, impossible and blinding. The raider fleet was caught in the tear, their jagged ships, so confident, so merciless, twisted in agony. Beams of fire bent back upon their own hulls. Time fractured. Some vessels moved too fast, aging into dust within seconds, while others froze, trapped like statues between moments. A scream echoed across comm channels, but it was not a single voice. It was thousands overlapping, stretched into a chorus of terror as the fold tore them apart. The Endeavor did not move like the others. It leapt, not forward, not backward, but through. It stepped between the broken halves of reality, carried, not by speed but by the will of the fold engine. One instant it was surrounded by enemies. The next, it was beyond them, standing in the calm shadow after the storm. On the bridge, silence fell. The crew blinked against the after-images burned into their eyes. Their breath came in ragged gasps. They could feel it, the strange stillness that followed something impossible. The cadet whispered, barely able to find his voice. We survived. But outside, there was no survival for the raiders. Where their fleet had once swarmed, only fragments remained. Some drifted, twisted into grotesque shapes, hulls folded into themselves like broken bones. Others were nothing at all, erased, as though they had never been born. The fold had swallowed them whole, leaving only echoes in the silence, and the galaxy watched. Across the shattered council channels, survivors fell quiet. The Thal no longer mocked. The Hearn did not whisper songs. Even the mighty Koru, proud and untouchable, were silent. Every eye had seen the same thing, the slow human ship bending the universe in half. Chief Harlow slumped against the console in engineering, his chest heaving. Sweat soaked his collar. His hands shook violently, but his eyes glowed with something more than fear. It was awe. He had helped build the fold engine. He had dreamed of what it might do. But never, never had he believed it would succeed like this. On the bridge, the captain remained standing. His gaze lingered on the field of ruin outside. His crew looked at him, waiting for words, waiting for anything. Slowly he exhaled and spoke. They thought us slow. His voice was calm, steady, but there was fire beneath it. They thought us weak. But speed means nothing when you can change the path itself. The cadet's throat tightened. He stared at the stars, still, trembling from the memory of their collapse. His fear had not vanished, but in its place was something stronger, pride. The galaxy had mocked them. The galaxy had laughed. But now the galaxy trembled, and in the silence after the fold, the UHS Endeavor drifted steady, its ugly hull scarred, but unbroken, a single truth written across its name. Humanity had shown its hand. The universe itself had bent before them. The silence that followed was heavier than any explosion. The battlefield drifted in ruins. The proud fleets of the Thal, the graceful vessels of the Hearn, the mighty Leviathan of the Koru, all shattered, scattered, or gone. The raiders, once so confident, had been erased from existence, torn apart by a power no one had ever imagined. Only one ship remained steady in the void, the ugly, slow, scarred UHS Endeavor. At first, no one spoke. The comm channels, once filled with laughter and arrogance, were now empty. Every survivor, every commander, every citizen watching through the Council's broadcasts sat frozen in stunned silence, and then, slowly, whispers began. They survived. The humans. They destroyed them. No ship should be able to do that. No engine. No machine. The voices were broken, trembling, not with pride, not with anger, but with awe and fear. Inside the Endeavor, the crew sat pale and shaking. Their hearts still raced from what they had done, from what they had seen. Many of them had tears in their eyes, not of sorrow, but of relief. They had stared into death and stepped through it. The cadet leaned against his console, breathing hard. His voice shook as he whispered, "We did it. We really did it." His eyes, wide with disbelief, turned to the captain. The captain stood tall, though his shoulders were heavy with the weight of what had just occurred. His gaze remained fixed, on the wreckage outside. For a long moment he did not answer. When he finally spoke, his words carried not triumph, but something deeper. "We did not just survive," he said. "We changed everything." The crew understood. They had felt it too. The fold engine was no weapon of simple war. It was something far greater. It was a rewriting of the rules themselves. Humanity had not just joined the galaxy that day, they had stepped beyond it. The comms flared alive. The voices of alien leaders filled the bridge. The Thal, once arrogant and cruel, spoke with voices stripped of pride. "Humans, we misjudged you. You are not slow. You are not weak. You are dangerous." The Hearn, soft and liquid in tone, added, "We laughed at your stone, but stones can break rivers. We bow to the storm you carry." Even the Koru, who rarely spoke to lesser species, offered words that shook the bridge. "In 1,000 years, we have not seen such a thing. Today, the stars bent for you, humanity. You are no longer beneath us. You are beside us." The words spread through the galaxy like fire, across colonies, across worlds, across every station that had once mocked the humans. There was no more laughter, only silence, only respect and fear. The cadet felt pride swell in his chest, though his hands still trembled. He whispered to himself, as though speaking to the stars, "They'll never laugh at us again." The captain finally turned from the viewport. His eyes swept across his crew, men and women who had faced the impossible and endured. He nodded once, firm and steady. "We showed them who we are, but remember this: power is not pride. The fold is not a toy. It is a burden, and now we must carry it." The crew listened, each face solemn. They knew the truth of his words. Today, they had won more than respect. They had claimed responsibility for a weapon that could unmake worlds. The galaxy would never forget what they had seen. Neither could humanity. Beyond the broken field of ships, the stars shone bright and unbroken. They seemed different now, closer somehow, as if the universe itself was waiting for humanity's next step. And on that day, the name of the UHS Endeavor was etched into history. Not as the slowest ship in the fleet, not as the weakest among the stars, but as the vessel that bent the universe in half and showed the galaxy what it meant to be human.